Hello, computer gamers. This is Insomniac Andrew, and I'm going to be a jerk and eat while I do today's episode. This is from Dota to League perspective from my Andrew. So, what I wanted to talk about today is champions Teemo, Annie, and Ashe, and also a bit more about masteries and runes. First off, though, I want to go back to episode 1 and point out kind of a pretty big detail, I guess. And in case you're wondering, you won't hear the tick tick computer sound for the recording. That's because I'm listening to some music right now on YouTube. Anyway, yeah, I don't want you guys to hear it. I want you to listen to your own music. So, whatever. Moving on. Yeah, what happened in episode 1, a big detail I didn't point out, which some of you, maybe you already know, I don't know. But, these champions aren't free all the time. There's always a rotation. So, this first ability that he has silences for 1.5 seconds or something like that. I'm not sure if the duration scales, but I don't think it does. I think it's the same at every level. Just keep that in mind. So it kind of makes his third skill seem a little bit more like Juggernaut's spinning, which can be kind of confusing for Dota 2 players, because actually the spin lasts a lot longer than 1.5 seconds, but you're only silenced for that long. So yeah, you could follow up with either Judgment or Demacian Justice, and either way, it's a pretty cool skill to initiate with Decisive Strike. But anyways, yeah. I forgot that little detail. Obviously it makes him a really strong champion, because it's just one more little thing that the ability does. That's pretty cool. So, but oh, and I also wanted to talk about the episode 2. When I was talking about Kale, I remember this wasn't anything that I missed. It was just something that occurred to me afterwards. The ultimate of hers. Remember, I told you guys I think this ultimate should be buffed somehow. Well, anyway, maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't. It's just my opinion. But if they were to change it, what would make it really cool, in my opinion at least, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm totally off base, but what would be pretty sweet is if it were like False Promise from Dota 2, right? Because False Promise, Oracle's ability, it's his ultimate. Well, I guess you shouldn't make them invisible. Maybe it's a little bit extreme, but if you did, that would be pretty sweet. Because False Promise, it makes the guy invisible, and it makes it so no damage happens to him and no healing happens to him. And it lasts for 9 seconds, and then once the duration's up, then the damage and healing is applied, but the healing is doubled. But also, while they're invisible, they're able to attack and cast spells during that whole 9 seconds. So something like this would probably be definitely overpowered and make her the strongest champion in the game, but it's still a cool idea. I just wanted to point that out. It's probably a bit extreme, but if this were False Promise instead of Intervention, it could be both a good thing and a bad thing for Kale. Because if you think about it, I guess there's a lot of burst damage in League of Legends. So, if her heal isn't strong enough and her allies don't have heals, then it doesn't really do any good to be able to stall the damage, because you're not going to survive. But they could, I suppose, increase the multiplier on the heals, and that would take care of that. You make it 5 times or 6 times or whatever. Yeah, I'm not sure. That might be a good way of doing it. In fact, they could even make the healing multiplier scale per level and even scale per AP for all I know. Sounds pretty cool. But anyways, yeah, that might work. And in that way, they could probably reduce the duration a whole lot. I would assume they might want it like 3 or 4 or 5 seconds or something like that. But I think that might be pretty fair. Anyways, moving on to the main content of the third episode. What did we want to talk about here? There's Teemo. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a little bit stunned by how beautiful this music is. Okay, now a lot of people think that this guy is a lot like Techies, or Techies is a lot like him. It's not really true. But there are some similarities. Okay, so first of all, this guy has a relatively short attack range. He's not melee or anything. It's kind of like Luna attack range, I guess, or Morphling. Okay, so his only real ability that like makes him scale with attack damage basically is his basic ability, and that's just because it can increase his attack speed by 40% for 3 seconds. The only way you can get this is if you go invisible by doing nothing, just standing still. Then you go invisible. So it's similar to Templar Assassin's meld, but it's a little bit different because it's not an activatable ability. You have to literally be doing nothing, which means one of two things. You need to either turn off auto attacks, so you can actually literally do nothing, or need to walk far enough away from something that you're able to attack, so that way you're not attacking stuff, and then you can go invisible. So I would recommend the former. Turn off auto attack. That way you can walk right up to somebody and go invisible and attack them. But to be honest, I really haven't used this basic ability very much. I really suck with this champion. I need a lot more practice with him. But I do own him, so obviously I will be getting that practice in eventually. Alright, moving on. His first skill. I'm pretty good at using this, for the most part. I think I need to work on learning when I need to max it early and when I don't. I think more often than not I do need to max it early, and I end up maxing move quick, which I don't think scales all that well as you level it up. I think it scales better once you get all your items. So I need to work on just like, for whatever reason I keep thinking that it should really scale really good in the early game, but it just doesn't. So anyways, yeah, this does scale off of your AP, doing extra damage, I mean to say, and that's it. It doesn't increase duration off of your AP, which would be pretty sweet if it did. I would love that. Let's see, so what does it do? It gives the opponent 100% miss chance is what it does. So yeah, it basically curses them, but in the early levels it's very low duration. I think it goes 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3. So from 1 to 3 seconds, depending on the level. I think that's how it goes. So yeah, pretty significant difference between 1 and 3. And of course the damage I do believe increases per level. Now, his second ability, Move Quick, as you level it up, it gives him more and more movement speed. And that's just about it. But if he does get attacked, then he loses his bonus movement speed. However, whether he's attacked or not, he can activate the ability to double the movement speed that he should be getting from the passive, whether or not it's disabled. So that's pretty cool. but that's literally all it does. I think this ability needs a buff, but I think it is supposed to coincide with camouflage. Supposed to use it to get into position, and then you camouflage, and then you start using your other abilities and stuff. So I'm obviously just not using it correctly, and I'm maxing it out too early, which isn't helping. But you know, it's a learning process for me. Okay, third ability, Toxic Shot. This is a toggleable passive, which means it costs mana. So it's basically like searing arrows from Clinks, but it's a little bit different. Well, actually, quite a bit different. First of all, it doesn't do physical damage; it does magical damage. And then it doesn't just do damage on hit, but it also does damage over time. So that's pretty cool. So it's like a combo of Searing Arrows from Clinks and Venomancer's his passive, where it does damage over time after he attacks the guy. Poison Sting, I think it's called. Anyway, so yeah, pretty sweet ability, and it lasts for 4 seconds. The damage over time does. So it's a pretty nice ability. The both the damage on impact and the damage over time will scale with AP, although the ratios are different. I think what is the ratio? I'm not sure. I think it's like 30% or something like that for on impact, and like 20 for the over time. I'm not really sure, but it's pretty good ratio, I suppose, considering. Noxious Trap is his ultimate, so he does have to get to level 6 before he can use this, but it's like a combo ability. Like it's like an observer ward, because it's invisible to the enemies, and people, of course, you know, can use their summoner teleport to it and other abilities to jump to it like a regular unit, which is fun. It also gives Teemo a bit of vision, and well, although it is a mushroom, I guess it's the type of mushroom, if you step on it, then it expels spores, and those spores will attack the guy stepping on it. So what Teemo does is, because this mushroom is not particularly visible to the opponents, I'm not exactly sure why. I suppose it's magic, or maybe it's just too small. But if it's too small, how come the allies can teleport to it? But then that's because that's magic. Either way, I don't know. Not too particularly relevant, I guess, how logical it is. The point is, the ability slows down and damages over time the guy stepping on it. It only lasts for like 2 seconds or so. I'm not sure exactly how long, but it's pretty obnoxious if you can set them up a bunch of them, like in a path that somebody's trying to go down, then and they keep on stepping on them. It's great. And as you're running away, you can start planting some, and if they chase you, they either have to go the long way to chase you, or they have to step on the mushroom. Either way, they're kind of screwed because they can't get at you. So, you know, combined with your move quick, maybe you going invisible, you can imagine that Teemo can be really hard to kill sometimes. So any champion, if they can get close to him, if they can lock him down. Teemo is one of those champions that just annoys people so much. And whenever there's an annoying champion, what players like to do is they like to pick up Flash as a summoner spell. So watch out for that. And oh yeah, Teemo is also pretty vulnerable to Ignite. So if somebody has Flash and Ignite, be careful with them. Try to make sure that you have a healthy amount of HP at all times, I guess is what I'm trying to say. One thing that helps Teemo out is another thing I wanted to mention. The These mushrooms, they will not stack their damage, but they do scale with your AP, your ability power, and that's just the damage. So keep that in mind. So you can, I would say, just put them in a staggered lineup on the map. Don't plant them all in the same spot. That's not good for Teemo. But it works for Shaco if you want to stack them all in the same spot. Not necessarily reliable, but there's ways you can make it reliable, I guess. Anyway, what I wanted to point out is there's an item that gives him quite a bit of health, 300, which is pretty nice. It gives him magic penetration. Oh, I didn't mention, all of his abilities, they're doing magic damage. His first, his third, and his ultimate, they are doing magic damage. So this item, the stat, the 15 magic penetration, is pretty darn useful for Teemo. So anyway, and the ability power obviously is applied to his 3 damaging abilities. So it's a pretty good item, but not just all that, but it helps you because you can also deal damage, like 12% of the target's HP once they hit a shroom, basically, is how the math comes out to. So they hit a shroom anywhere on the map. If you've got this item in your inventory, it's going to proc and they're going to lose 12% of their, well, actually it's their current health per second. So that's actually not too terrible now that I think about it. It's not too incredibly strong, but it's still, it's all that it offers: the magic penetration, the health, the ability power, and quite a bit of solid damage. It's a pretty fancy item. So actually, now that I think about it, 2 and then 2 and then 2, that's definitely not 12%. But I mean 4 and 4 and 4, because it doubles if they're slowed, which is exactly what your shrooms do. It slows them. You will have to hit them with multiple shrooms, I guess, though. Perhaps. I'm not sure exactly how long they last. I don't think they can last for 3 seconds. Like 2 or 2.5 or whatever. But I could be wrong. Either way, they're still going to be taking a lot of damage from this item. Just keep that in mind. Now, since his abilities are doing magic damage, that means Teemo benefits a lot from spell vamp items. Just keep that in mind. I'm still trying to master Teemo, so these may or may not be the best ways to build him. I'm thinking Runan's Hurricane is kind of garbage on him. I should probably take that out, but I don't know, whatever. Moving on. Next champion. Annie. Let's see. She is another small champion. I guess she's not a Yordle, though. She's kind of interesting. Let's go over her abilities one at a time, I guess is the best way to do this. I want to say, though, her ultimate, it's a summon. It's basically Warlock's ultimate, except it doesn't stun them, but you can use her passive to make this ultimate of hers stun them. So you drop a bear, like a demonic teddy bear, whatever the heck, from the sky, or I'm not sure how you want to think of it. I just always think of Warlock's ultimate because he drops that golem. But anyways, yeah, this crazy looking bear with these stitches and stuff, because I guess he sees a lot of battle. He fights for her. So he's basically just a right-clicking summon. That's all he is. But he does do magic damage over time, I believe, around him, and he hits pretty hard. I don't know if you can actually buff his stats through your own items or not, but he's still pretty strong either way. I would like to learn more about it if I can, but so here's how her basic ability works. You just keep casting spells until your grayed out buff turns orange, basically. This is what the buff is going to look like. but it's going to be gray while you're casting spells. But once it hits orange, then your next spell it's going to stun them. So, but that doesn't apply to Molten Shield. So what I mean to say is, Molten Shield will count towards turning your buff to orange. But once it hits orange, casting this won't stun anybody. So you want to cast one of these other spells to stun them. Now the best spell usually to stun them with is going to be your second spell, Incinerate, because this hits an area. Think of it as Dragon Knight's Breath of Fire. It's very, very, very similar to that. But so when you cast it as the orange Pyromania, basic ability spell, it's going to stun them all in addition to damaging them. So as you can imagine, that's really strong. Of course, this ability does scale with AP, which makes it even stronger. I don't believe it is 100% AP though, but it's still pretty solid amount of AP scaling. So it's pretty strong. I think it's like 70% maybe. And then like her first skill, I believe does have like 100 or maybe like 80 or 90% AP scaling. Whatever it is, it's pretty darn high and it's pretty strong ability. It's I believe it's a longer range than her second ability, but it only hits the one unit. It's really good for last hitting. It's actually a really low mana cost ability, so it's pretty good for charging up your basic ability if you need to do it that. And of course you can also use your Molten Shield to charge it up too. But the Molten Shield has a pretty darn good cooldown. It lasts for about 6 seconds or so. I'm not sure exactly how long. Maybe like cooldown in 10 seconds. I'm not really sure exactly. I tend to get CDR on her anyway. Cooldown reduction items, that is, I mean to say, or runes or masteries. I'm not sure. But because the cooldown reduction makes it so you can keep casting Tibbers more often, basically your ultimate, right? Because it's a really strong one. And it also lets you cycle through your spells and basically be stunning more often. And that's pretty important, because stuns are good. So that's what her basic does. It stuns, I believe it's for 1.5 seconds. So it's actually pretty solid. It's like even a longer stun than Warlock's stun, I believe. Just keep that in mind, really strong. So the only spell I didn't go over is her Molten Shield. And this it's basically exactly what you would think it is. It's like really awesome because it's basically an emulation from Demon Hunter Warcraft 3. Which, if I were to compare it to something in Dota, what would that be? It's like Leshrac Ultimate, only a lot weaker amount of damage. And I think it's a smaller area too, probably. But anyway, other than that, it also raises both her defense types, the armor and magic resist, which is really nice. Unfortunately, I think unlike Garen, her armor and magic resist, this ability will not benefit from extra armor and magic resist. I mean, obviously, you keep your health bar from falling too fast if you have more armor and magic resist. But I mean, it doesn't scale, I believe. But it's still pretty solid. So yeah, I would say get some health with her along with this. And only really get armor and magic resist if like the opponent's not getting the penetrations. Otherwise, just don't worry about it. So, moving on. She's a really useful champion. Like her attack speed and all that's pretty solid. People sometimes lane her in mid, sometimes they lane her in bottom. She's pretty darn flexible. I think some people might even play her at top, but it's probably not such a great idea. But I've never tried it. Alright, I've had success with her at both bottom and mid lane. So there's that. Pretty easy here, champion. Now, this champion, I guess, people want to say she's like Drow Ranger, but she's really not. She's actually more like Alchemist, except that she's ranged. Because, of course, they both have the same passive. Her third ability makes her gain bonus gold. Of course, the mechanics are different. In her case, it's a lot more basic. she only gained 3 gold per kill on the minions, or I think it works on monsters too. So unfortunately, it doesn't scale at all with the level, or with how many you kill in a certain amount of time, like Alchemist's ability does. So it's not as strong as Alchemist's ability, but all things considered, it's still pretty good. And then to top it off, her first skill is based on critical strike chance. So basically what it means is, if she's standing around doing nothing or walking around, it will boost this up all the way up to 100. And once it hits 100 points, her next attack will definitely critical strike, which is great. And the higher your critical strike chance is, the higher the number that this starts out at. So at the beginning of the game, of course, your critical strike chance is 0. But as you're buying critical strike chance items, or you have critical strike chance like runes or potentially masteries. I don't think there are any masteries currently that give you direct critical strike chance, but there might have been some in the past, and there might be some in the future. Anyway, the point is, the higher your critical strike chance, the higher the number starts out at. And there's a relatively cheap item you could buy that actually gives like 35% critical strike chance, and one of the items that builds into it just gives you 10%. So this item, the gold cost for it could be comparable to like an Aquila ring or a Wraith Band, that kind of thing. So you buy up this item, and not only does it boost your critical strike chance, but it also awards you gold for slaying minions and monsters, just like your passive does. So it makes a lot of sense for her to actually purchase that item to help her to farm up and get lots more gold. So as you might imagine, she can come online as a carry much more quickly than other carries can. Just if you put her with a support, like in the bottom lane perhaps, or wherever, and then she's able to farm up and utilize her abilities with the items that she buys to their fullest. So her passive ability, though, her third ability, it also has an active component, and the active opponent does scale as you level it up. Unfortunately, it does not scale with either ability power or attack damage. I kind of wish it did scale with ability power in some way. Fact of the matter is, it doesn't deal damage, and Riot has a tendency to forget about scaling with non-damage mechanics. They still do it, but it's mostly as of late that they've been doing it. They haven't really done it much in the past, I believe. So, yeah, this is perhaps something that they could look forward to doing, is perhaps making her Hawkshot scale with AP. I'm not really sure exactly what they would do with it. Maybe increase the range. Sometimes I feel like the range on it is just simply not good enough. Like, it doesn't go far enough, I guess, or maybe it's not wide enough. Perhaps they could make either one or both of those types of things scale. I would say distance is probably the safer way to go. Make that increase with your ability power, perhaps. But other than that, the only ability that she has that scales with ability power is her ultimate. But staying on topic here with the Hawkshot, how to explain it? It's like Power Shot from Windrunner, only instead of doing damage, it just gives vision. And when it hits the end of its range, it then will explode in a circle and give a circle of vision for a couple of seconds or something like that. So it's a pretty good ability because it gives you gold, and then it's got this scouting component. Unfortunately, the cooldown on the scouting is a little bit longer than I'd prefer it to be, so I do like to get cooldown reduction on her if I can. Now, Her second ability is pretty nice. It's pretty flashy, pretty much. It scales off attack damage. The more attack damage you have, the more damage it does. It's kind of like Dragon Knight's Breath of Fire, only it's like once an arrow hits a target, then it disappears. So I'm not sure what's up with that video right there with this still frame. That doesn't make sense. If one of those arrows hit him, then it should have disappeared. It shouldn't go the full length. But anyway, whatever. That might have been a visual bug at the time, or maybe they've improved the visual clarity since then, since they made this video. But whatever the case, that's how it works now. And so I guess there's maybe 7 arrows that she shoots out in a cone, and it's pretty awesome. Oh yeah, that's what it says in the text right there. I'm not sure if they've changed the number or not since then. You know, you can't always rely on these information pages for the most up-to-date information. But she does shoot several arrows, and it's really effective because it doesn't just do damage. It also applies her slow ability, which is another passive that she has. And this is a toggleable passive that costs mana. Of course, this ability costs mana. But anyways, going back to her first ability, or passive, what does it do? Oh, I wanted to mention also the volley does have like a 15-second cooldown or something like that. Maybe it's 10, I don't know. But it's very handy to be able to use CDR to make it lower. Okay. This is just what it sounds like. It synergizes with her volley. You might think of it as like bristleback. You know, he's got his bristleback and his quills. Those two synergize. Well, it's the same thing with her frost shot and volley. There's not much else to say. Your basic attacks are going to be slowing the enemy. I believe it's only movement speed, not attack speed. Okay, moving on. Her crystal arrow, very sweet ability. This one, how to explain it? I don't think there is an ability in Dota 2 like this one. Not that I remember, anyway. Oh, well, it's a little bit like Clockwork's Rocket Flare. It can be useful for scouting if your Hawkshot is on cooldown. But you probably don't want to use it for scouting unless you really have to. But at any rate, it's global, unlike Hawkshot. So you can shoot across the entire map if you so please. And it'll hit... what does it hit? It hits champions and or minions, but not monsters. I believe that's how it works. I could be a little wrong there, but I think so. I think it ignores monsters, but it hits champions or minions, and it'll stun them. For kind of like Mirana's arrow, the duration scales on distance. I'm not exactly sure the math on that. But yeah, it's a pretty sweet ultimate. I love it, and it does magic damage, unlike your volley, which does physical. So, pretty sweet champion. If you do want to deal more magic damage, you can build some ability power on her, because that ultimate does scale with it, as I mentioned earlier, I do believe. But also, there is a critical strike chance item that she could buy if she wants to, which deals magic damage. So it's a very handy item. Obviously, it can build out of the Avarice Blade, as well as this item can too. Oh, now that I'm actually having to correct myself. This item I was thinking of that gave 35% crit chance does not build from that other item, unfortunately. But that's still cool. You can still get this one, which gives you 20 armor penetration, which, as you might imagine, since she can attack with volley very often, and You know, she scales the critical strike chance and all that. Attack speed is very useful for her, which this can give you if you activate it. It gives you 40% attack speed. It's a very solid item for her. Probably more viable than this other item. But heck, you could buy this item, upgrade to this one for more firepower, and then buy a new one of these, and eventually upgrade it to this for some magic damage, for when the opponent starts getting, you know, extra amounts of armor, and you actually get some magic damage in. So she's a pretty flexible champ. There's a lot of items she could be buying. She could buy some super crit item, Infinity Edge, which she obviously synergizes really well with, and you can get like some lifesteal, which can give her. There's an item that gives her a shield. There's an item that gives her some, steals the opponent's movement speed, which is it also lifesteals. And then there's the lifesteal item where she can actually get her mana back. So she can spam her first ability all she wants, as well as her ultimate. She doesn't have to go back to the fountain basically. So there's a lot of items she can use. There's even this one, which will give her ability power and attack damage, and that's pretty cool too. And then it'll increase her attack speed the more she attacks, which is pretty cool. Although it does have a cap. It's a limit of 8 times there. But yeah, pretty cool champion overall. Very simple, easy to use, and she's pretty popular. But a lot of people really suck with her. But whatever, that doesn't matter. Overall, the main thing to get used to with her is that, you know, you just gotta get really good with your last hitting and stay alive in lane, and potentially, you know, make it hard for the opponents to last hit, usually by killing them, but, you know, whatever. You can scare them out of lane too. Could also work, perhaps. We're gonna talk about runes and masteries a bit. Runes. Okay. So I've got 7 rune pages. It's actually quite a bit, but apparently the maximum number of rune pages is 20. I'm never going to get that much. I think I've got as many as I'm going to get, unless maybe I start winning some tournaments or something and start having tons of cash, and maybe I'll buy some more rune pages. But right now I feel like I have enough to go pro. So, what are rune pages? Well, when you start a League of Legends account, you're really not able to use rune pages very well at all. But as you level it up to the maximum level of 30, then you get access to an entire rune page. So what this means is there are 30 of these rune slots. So each level you're given access to a rune slot on your rune page. And then you can fill it with a rune that you're going to have to buy with your influence points, your IP. So, all these runes are actually pretty expensive, the good ones anyway. I think they actually abolished the purchasing of tier 1 and tier 2 runes, I'm not sure, but at any rate, people shouldn't have been buying those if they ever did, but they were super cheap IP wise anyway, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Anyway, so you unlock your entire rune page, and then what do you do with it? Well, I was mostly using the champions I would get for free, so and I also found another one that I liked a lot too. So, health plus 216 by level, when you hit level 18. See, how does it work? 1.33 health per level, and you get 9 of those. So that's how the math turns out to. So if you think of it, when you get to level 9, you'll have 108 bonus health from your rune page, and that's just from 9 slots from these yellow ones here. This has done rather well for me on Rammus, Kayle, and Shaco, and even on Warwick. So it's good for those champions. This particular seal, and then there's what is there? Glyphs. Good glyphs that I like are the magic resist and cooldown. I don't like any of the others. You get the scaling magic resist again, like with the scaling health, because overall it'll provide more when you level up. Now, if you're gonna get armor, that's totally viable and pretty good. But I would say it's best if you have armor if you're in bottom lane, if you're either the marksman or the support. In other lanes, I don't think it's as important. It could still be useful, but a lot of the time you could just buy an item to get your armor and that's enough. As for whether or not you should get the scaling or the flat, it's kind of your judgment call to make. If you think it's going to take a while for you to gain your levels, then go with the flat armor. But if you think you can level up pretty safely, then you should get the scaling armor instead. But the scaling armor is not that much better than the flat. So it's really your choice to make, but I wouldn't go for either of the armors anyway, because I think they're really not all that effective. If I am laning bottom lane, I will prefer the regen seals instead. I feel like these are much more effective for my laning, so that way when I'm going to get harassed, whether it's with magic or physical damage, and I'll be able to heal them both off equally well with these seals. That's the way I figure. And then I can actually have magic resist as well to help against the magic damage. Yeah, both of these pages have that. So actually, one thing that I'm not afraid to do then is go toe to toe with the enemy marksman that may be doing physical damage to me. Because I'm just going to regen off his damage anyway. Now, I just want to say real quick that I name these differently so that I can think of which kind of champions are good with them. So, well, I'm sorry, I got a stem in my mouth. There we go. Or that's just a piece of skin from the raisin. Anyway, I'm probably going to start using this rune page for Teemo. That way I can build some cooldown reduction items on him, other than just the 10% one. Because what I was doing was this one, and I did like it. I think it was effective, but it wasn't as effective as it could be. So I'm going to try this one out because it was very effective when I was Kale. And having that extra movement speed really works good with their movement speed boosting abilities, apparently. So, and then there's the attack speed too. I might use this with Master Yi as well. It might be good for him. Yeah, I don't know. He's good with the attack speed. Anyway, marks. We didn't go over those. Yeah, those are just basically your attack damage or penetrations. So if you do want magic penetration, if you're a mage, you can pick up your marks for magic penetration for maximum effect. But if you are trying to boost your ability power, you gotta go blues. They're much better than the reds. And quints or anything goes. They're the strongest. You can put anything you want there. So yeah, it's great because you can customize the way you play your champion with the rune pages and make them a lot stronger. For my Shaco, since his first ability crits every time, I go with Assassinate rune page, which increases the crit chance. So it's pretty solid. I go for this sometimes when I play Garen as well, if I want to go crits on my third skill. And with the extra health, it's going to help Garen to regenerate even more. Overall, it's probably not going to make that much of a difference, but it just kind of fits his theme all that much more anyway. And I'm going to combine it with the mastery that it increases his health by 3% anyway, which this will really add up. So, moving on, what else is there to say? Not much. These are like health and armor. These are like magic resist. Oh, they also might be mana regen or mana. Mana regen's probably good. Mana, probably not, unless you are planning on buying like Mana Mune, or like the item that gives you like 1,000 mana, and then it gives blah 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 percentage of your mana is applied to your, it gives you attack damage and so on, those items, then I guess you could get those kinds of runes. Runes are so expensive, I can't imagine getting that stuff, but who knows. So, moving on. Masteries. What are these babies? Same thing as runes. You unlock a point every level. So the max level is 30, so you only get 30 points. So as there's a lot of points still that you'll never be able to get. So you have to choose. Alright? Now, there's really not much else to say. Masteries are pretty straightforward. They're pretty basic. They're very specific, and they're lots of fun. If you're a jungler, these are really good. This one's always really good. Well, it's up to you how you want to name your rune pages. But I like to remind myself of which champion it is that is using the rune pages and what position they're in. So in this case, this rune page is being used by Warwick and Kayle, and it's used when they're jungling. But this one over here is used by Rammus and Shaco when they're jungling. So you can see Rammus and Shaco need more of the defense masteries than Kayle and Warwick do. Kayle and Warwick are using more of the blue ones. Alright. And then, let's see what else is there. Like this one, it's just when I play Garen. And I probably pretty much always play Garen at top lane, I would imagine, but who knows. And it's just for Tim. It doesn't really seem to fit any other champ. Or maybe it'll fit a champ that I don't actually own. I'll maybe experiment and pick this one perhaps. But that could be the same for any mastery page. And this one is when I play Varus or Ashe. There's not much else to say other than that. There's this ability will give me some extra gold when I attack the enemy champion, so that's pretty useful. So there's all these different masteries that do different stuff. This one will actually heal your champion after you've made a kill or an assist, so that's really nice. So there's a lot of really good masteries. So it's really good to take your time and find out what's going to be best for the strategy that you're using. And this is my Teemo and Soraka one. I find the Executioner, even just 1 point, 1 point is really good for her. For a lot of the times, my allies might be in trouble and they can't finish someone off, but I can do it. And I might only get like just a handful of kills or even 1 or 2, but just those few kills that I made with the Executioner, like I wouldn't have been able to make it without this particular mastery. So it's pretty darn valuable. I'm going to start using this for Teemo, and I believe it's going to make him a lot better. Having that. I'm not sure if I want to tweak this beyond that or not. I'm kind of thinking maybe I need to cut some of these other ones out, but I don't know. I'm gonna I think my new item build is going to be really solid for Teemo and make him go a long ways. I just got to come up with it. So that's pretty much all there is to it. You know, there's like a much more well-rounded one here, which I think I need to add Rammus to as a support. I believe I'm gonna have to do some research on it, but I probably played this with Rammus when I was playing him as support. But anyways, I think that's everything for this episode. I gotta get back to playing this game now. But look forward to episode 4. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about yet, but I'll decide that after I'm done here. Enjoy your video games, guys, and I hope you've learned something from the video. Alright, bye.